Hello, my name is Jaelyn Peckman. I'm an instructor of agricultural communications at the University of Missouri. In this presentation, we are going to build upon a communications plan and look at how to keep these plans flexible for the ever-changing environment that we find ourselves in. Really, the very first step of creating a flexible communications plan is to have a really strong, in-depth, integrated marketing communications plan. You can see that this plan can consist of multiple sections, and based on research, we want to make sure that this communications document at the minimum has our company's mission statement, goals, a situation analysis, strategies and tactics that are used to share our company's key messages. Once you have a communications plan in place, it's recommended that you sit down with your meat processing company's leadership team and especially loop in people that work on your communications efforts and review this plan every 6 months or at least once a year. Because really, whenever we think of how we need to keep our plans flexible, these are the 5 steps in making sure that we do have a flexible communication plan and that we can bend to what the environment in the world is doing and remain relevant. First, we need to evaluate that plan. We should always do a SWOT analysis whenever we evaluate our plan to think about things that are working well for our company right now and areas of growth. We could also loop in some primary research opportunities, and then we'll look through each of these individually throughout this presentation, but the last 2 steps are to revise that IMC plan and then create a crises communications plan document as well. I found this statistic astonishing. So of the companies in the United States that have an integrated marketing communications plan or a plan with those 7 pieces, only 25% of them actually take time to review that plan on an annual basis. And I think it's because it's hard to sit down and look back through a document that we've been using and really reflect, because we want to create something and keep running forward. But whenever we think of our communications efforts, it really is kind of like personal growth. The way that we grow personally is by reflecting on what's working now and areas of improvement, and we need to do the same in our communications effort. So when you have that communications review plan every 6 months or at least once a year, here is a strategy that you can use when you sit down with your company's leadership to work through these pieces in your communications plan. I would recommend printing out that plan for everybody in your company's leadership, especially the people that work on your communications teams, and give them 3 different things to look for as they go piece by piece through the mission, through the goals, the situation analysis, etc. And those 3 pieces are: look specifically for things that are really good, things that are working okay but could be better, and then also identify things that are in our communications plan that are no longer relevant or are no longer a place of priority that our processing company wants to place emphasis on. I would recommend having everyone on your team do this individually. You could even give them 3 different color markers and just make sure that they are looking through every piece of that communications plan and categorizing them into those 3 categories of good, okay, but could be better, and no longer relevant. The key is to not skip anything. Once your team has some time to work through those pieces individually, schedule a time for just a roundtable discussion. And things that the majority of your teammates have marked as good, keep them. Talk about maybe ways you can improve them, but definitely keep that piece of your communications plan. Those pieces that unfortunately were marked as no longer relevant, make sure that you X those things out of your communications plan. This communications plan should be a livable document. We don't want to keep things around that are no longer a priority of our company. Just because it was a priority a year ago and it's not any longer, it's not anything negative. It just means that our company is flexing and moving forward, and we want our communications plan to be progressive as well. That bullet point in the middle is where it gets really fun. Let your people on your team talk about the pieces that they think are going okay, but then how they think that those pieces could be used better. Also, something good to do at least once a year is to conduct a SWOT analysis on your company. So typically when we think of a SWOT analysis, we think of the term strengths, things that our company is doing really well, maybe some weaknesses that we're encountering, opportunities for growth, And then some things that would be considered threats that could negatively impact our company. Here's the difference between that top row and the bottom row. Strengths and weaknesses are things that we, as company leadership, have control over. We can change so that we can control the pieces that are our strengths and our weaknesses. Things that we do not have control over would be opportunities and threats. Those are external forces that still impact our company, but that we don't have control over. We can only react to them. I think it's important to note before I go to the next slide and show you an example is that when you do this SWOT analysis, don't only look at your communications efforts. Look at your company as a whole, everything that your company is strong in, weak in, opportunities and threats. So it's not just a SWOT analysis of your communications efforts, but your company and your actions as a whole, because that should drive your communications methods. Here are some examples of strengths. Maybe your company has a really strong, unique product line. Or maybe you know every single person's name that works in your company and their favorite hobby because you have great company culture and everyone loves to come to work. Or maybe you get a lot of foot traffic through the day during the lunch hour because you've got a beautiful retail counter and people from your local community come in, get a deli sandwich, and sit down and eat lunch at your company. Maybe some weaknesses could be that you have employee turnover, or you focus all of your advertising efforts just on radio and you don't do anything in print or digital. Or perhaps you don't have much, or you have low foot traffic because there's not a lot of people that walk in during the day, and that's an area that you would like to see grow. Those are pieces that you, as company leadership, have some control over. You can dictate things within your company to affect these strengths and weaknesses. Things that we can't control, we just have to react to, are some opportunities. Right now, we live in a really health-conscious world. Consumers all across the United States want to know more about the nutrition information and the foods that they are putting into their bodies. How can you market your products to show that they are a healthy option for their families? Right now, we're also seeing a lot of people that really want to support local small-town companies. Does this describe your company? How can you market your company in this aspect? And then also a lot of people want to know the story behind their food production, that family feel. Has your company been around for generations? Is that something you can share with your client base? And some threats. We do see food trends that change pretty consistently over time. Maybe we need to consider veganism and vegetarianism. Not that we can control this, but we can control our messaging on these topics. Also, there's some misinformation out there on the World Wide Web about production practices of raising livestock on farms, right? And so it's not that we can control what consumers think about production practices, but again, we can respond to these and control our messaging on agricultural topics. And there's always some type of information in the media on hot topics. So just paying attention to what types of headlines that the general public may be seeing in the news media and how we can respond to those messages. Once you do that SWOT analysis, it's also good to devote some time each year to conducting primary research. This could look in a variety of ways. Maybe you really have some questions that you want to ask people one-on-one, customers one-on-one, or a small group of customers to where you can learn about their expectations. So really sit down and take some time to develop intentional questions of things that you want to know from your client base. Maybe these questions are, what impacts your purchasing decisions, so that you can learn how you can bend and move with the trends of what your client base expects. Or maybe you just simply ask, what are your expectations when you come into my store? The good thing about interviews is that you get a lot of really in-depth answers to where you can ask follow-up questions and you're getting qualitative data. However, due to time, we can't ask every single customer these questions, right? Because there's just not enough time in the day. Maybe you grab a few of your really trusty customers and take them to coffee and have a small group discussion. Or for an option of being able to get some information from a larger group of people, you could consider doing a survey. This could be a paper copy that you print out and keep by the register. People could complete on their own time and bring it back by the store the next time they're in. Or you could create a digital survey and share it on your social media outlets, or even print a QR code and keep that next to the register that people could complete whenever they're checking out. Again, think of those questions that you really want to know from people. Maybe it's, what are people's packaging preferences? Or where do they gain information about your company or meat products in general? The last thing that we can do all year round is take notes. Observe people's, your customers' changes in purchasing habits. Do they purchase some products during more certain seasons than others? Or do you hear people make comments about product availability? Or maybe they have an idea of a new product that they wish they could find in their local hometown. How can you respond to that? It's also good to pay attention to repeat buyers. What products do people come back in and buy again? And what products do people buy one time and not repeat buy? And then what can you do with that information? So once you have those three pieces, you've got the plan that you've marked up on what's good, it's going okay but could be better, and what's no longer relevant. You've done a SWOT analysis, and you've also looked at primary research. It's really now time to revise that communications plan. That way it's flexible and it looks a little different every single year to be relevant and up to date. The last piece of information, once you revise that communications plan, you've brought it up to date, you've got it with the current trends, is to add another section to that communications plan. Just like we had those 7 sections on that pyramid, I recommend adding a section for planning for a crisis, or perhaps a second document. Of course, we probably never would have thought we would find ourselves in a global pandemic in the year 2020, right? But it happened. So what we've learned from this is that it is important to sit down and take time to plan for a crisis and make sure that our communications plan remains flexible for any type of crisis that could occur. You can create this document by first listing any and all potential crises that could occur and affect your business. I then recommend assessing each of those crises and assigning a level of risk that you think it could occur. And then for each of those crises, develop some key messages and kind of a mini communications plan of how you would respond if that crisis did unfortunately happen. We can learn a lot about communications during a crisis from Bluebell Ice Cream. Well, several years ago, they had a listeria outbreak that actually was fatal for 3 people. However, this company is still relevant today, and based on case study research, we see that the way that they responded during this crisis is what kept them so relevant. In the top right-hand corner of the screen is a picture of Bluebell's CEO. That person became their spokesperson during this crisis. He was the person that you would see in the news media and you would see on social media posts. He was the face of the company that helps create clarity during a crisis. Bluebell was extremely transparent. They wrote with empathy, and they talked about what they were going to change for the future so that this crisis wouldn't happen again. And those 3 qualities really resonated with their audience. We can also make sure that whenever we're making our crisis communications plan, we choose some short 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 words sound bites or key messages that every time we communicate during that crisis, we say, so that it resonates with our audience. They hear that same phrase, whatever that is. It's okay to admit when something's not known. It's much better to admit when something's not known than to make up an answer for the sake of having an answer to say. And then I'd also recommend halting your evergreen content. Evergreen content is our content that we would typically communicate about, something that is not relevant to the time that we live in, but it has a really long-lasting timeline that it would be relevant. Because during a crisis, people just want to know what our company's doing to fix the crisis and how we plan to move forward. The key in a crisis communications plan is to simply communicate consistently and often. Never saying nothing is not the right idea. It's always good to keep good, transparent, empathetic, and futuristic messaging out there during a crisis. Just this last piece that I think could be added into a communications plan. Right now, people are loving this aspect of storytelling from brands. They want to know the story about how that brand got started, the people that work for that brand, and really get them hooked to support the behind the scenes kind of things. So just when we look at these 3 restaurants. We know that Five Guys started from 5 brothers that their dad said, you can either go to college or start a business. And they said, we're starting a business, and it's grown to what it is today. Raising Cane's has a phenomenal story of a man who really wanted to start a company, a food restaurant, but didn't have the money. And so he found some other jobs to do while he could save up and get a small business loan. And he named this company after his dog, Cane, that was with him through all those years as he was saving up money. Or Firehouse Subs, who donates a certain percentage of their proceeds every day to support first responders and firefighters out there. What are some stories that you could tell about your brand that would resonate with that audience? That's definitely flexible content, because our brand is constantly changing and evolving to meet with the trends. So storytelling is an area that you can always add into your key messaging and your communications plans. These are those 5 steps on how to make your plan flexible. Remember to evaluate that plan every 6 months or at least a year. Do a SWOT analysis and primary research annually. Take those 3 pieces to revise your communications plan, and then update your crises communications plan annually as well. Please note that you can reach out to me if you have any questions or would like to brainstorm any of these sections. I am more than happy to answer questions or talk through ideas that you may have for your meat processing company. Take care.